So today I'm going to rank all 5 Disney Golden Age films from the worst to the best. We're going to disagree. So let me know down in the comments which ones you agree with, which ones you disagree with. And if you like this type of content, and if you love Disney as much as I do, consider subscribing. I have plenty more movie reviews and rankings coming your way. And with that, let's get started. And in last place, we have Fantasia. And this movie, along with its sequel, which we'll talk about in a later video, have the distinction of being the most unique films in the Disney animated catalog, in that they're not narrative driven. They don't have a central protagonist or antagonist. They don't have an overarching plot. If you don't know what Fantasia is, it's a series of animated shorts set to a different orchestral piece. So instead of Disney asking how can music accompany a story, it's what if music was the story? And how can music be expressed visually? And it's set to different classical pieces like a Nutcracker suite. Some of the sequences are more abstract, just following various shapes and lines to different beats of music. Others follow more distinct characters. Again, not through any plot, but there's centaurs, there's a segment with dinosaurs, some with fairies. And the most iconic scene here, and in my opinion the best one, is the Sorcerer's Apprentice. What I think makes it the best is just we have a character we can root for in Mickey Mouse, and a simple story to follow about how Mickey's a young sorcerer and he uses magic and it just spirals out of control. So it's chaotic, it's whimsical, it does have great music. It is a short piece of the film. I wish we got to see more of it, but it is the standout sequence here, and in my opinion, the best one worth talking about. So this film was particularly difficult to rank because it's ambitious, it succeeds in what it set out to do, but it's so incredibly boring at the same time. And like I said in the beginning of the video, I'm ranking these on how much I enjoy watching them. And this movie is the longest film in the Disney animated catalog. And combine that with no characters to get invested in, no plot to be interested in, and music that I just don't particularly care about, there was no movie that I was more bored with and that I could not wait for it to be over. And for that, it lands in last place. But that leads us into number 4, Bambi. And with the rest of the films on this list, they do have a central narrative and characters to follow, and they all share the same idea of innocence and seeing the world for the first time. And it's important to note here that prior to these films, animation was mostly shorts, 8-10 minutes long, didn't tell these grand adventures. And with these being the first feature-length animated films, the storytelling here, while longer, it's still very simplistic, none of which more simplistic than Bambi in my opinion. In Bambi, he's born, experiences the world around him, plays with his cute little animal friends, has his mother pass away, endures a fire, and then becomes the great prince of the forest. But the story was never compelling enough, the conflict was never large enough for the payoff of him becoming the great prince of the forest like he's supposed to be to feel earned. It always just felt inherited. And then with the loss of his mother, I've never thought it was as tragic as people make it out to be. Main reason, it happens off screen, so you never really get to see Bambi grieve his mother outside of a few seconds. And then also, it just never had any impact on the plot. It never really changed him as a character, like we've seen in future animated films where their loss of their parents actually weighs down on them and affects their life and the story going forward. So while Bambi is cute, has some nice animation, some cute little animal friends, I've never felt that it was nearly as good as other people make it out to be. But that'll take us into 3rd place, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Now, I know this will upset a lot of you because Snow White is such a historical classic and very important to the history of animation. But this film has a lot of the same issues that Bambi does with a very thin story. It is an improvement over Bambi because it does have a central narrative and a conflict to follow, but there's no depth to the world, to the kingdom, or any of the characters. Everybody feels just like a personality personified instead of somebody with a character development. And when this film is only an hour and 20 or so minutes long, there are so many pointless scenes like dwarves washing their hands or snoring. And when you have such a short runtime, you can't waste any time. And there was just many occurrences with scenes that never progressed the story and never gave anybody any character development. So like every time I watch this film, I want to like it just because of how important it is to animation and to the Disney catalog, being the first feature-length animated film. But there's just so many problems that holds it back when comparing it by modern day standards. But that'll take us to our runner-up. And before we get to our runner-up, if you're liking this video, like and subscribe so you can see more content from me. But with that, our runner-up is Dumbo. And with Dumbo, the budget was cut due to financial disappointments from Fantasia and Pinocchio at the box office. But that never really holds the film back too much. The animation's a little bit cheaper at times, but it's still on par with other films in this era, and even better than certain scenes from other films in this era. And with the reduced budget, this is also the shortest film in the Disney catalog, but with that, it's just able to tell a nice, heartfelt story about a mother caring for her son who's an outcast and is constantly bullied. And when they're reunited for the first time, Baby Mine is such a beautiful song that never fails to get the tears going. And then with this movie being about an outcast, it also just has a nice message about how what makes you an outcast can also be your greatest strength and why people love you as well. Now, there are a couple things that hold the film back, mostly the racial insensitivity surrounding the film. And then also with this short run time, the film ends rather abruptly. While it's satisfying to see Dumbo flying with his mother watching over him, very proud, it should have gone in a different direction, expand upon it. So this is a film, unlike the other ones that have come before, that it could have been benefited from being even longer. So Dumbo, nice, beautiful, quick story. So glad I got to rewatch it, but that brings us into our number one, Pinocchio. And with Pinocchio, this is by far the most complete film in this era. We have the central conflict and the antagonist. We have the character arc for our hero. And with that character arc, Pinocchio, of course, starts as a living puppet who wants to become a real boy, and he has to learn along the way what that means. And he's imperfect at first. He lies. He's too naive, but he learns from these mistakes. He's able to see the consequences of his own actions from not listening to his conscience. He learns that he has to be responsible for his own actions. And so when he finally makes the sacrifice at the end, risking his life to save Geppetto from Monstro, it's incredibly satisfying when the Blue Fairy grants him his wish and makes him a real boy. Fantastic film. If you haven't rewatched Pinocchio in a while, rewatch Pinocchio. I think you might like it even more than you did. And I'm going to be ranking all the films within the distinct eras along with one massive ranking of every film in the Disney catalog. So if that interests you, stick around and check that out. And I imagine Pinocchio is going to rank incredibly high, a lot higher than I thought it was going to be when I first started watching Pinocchio for this review. So that'll do it for this review. Let me know your ranking down in the comments. Which one's my craziest take? What's your number one? What's last place for you? But that'll do it, and I'll see you in the next video.